You do not struggle because you are weak. You struggle because something deep within you refuses to remain asleep. The soul does not grow in comfort. It grows in contradiction, and what you call struggle is often the sign that the unconscious is knocking. Not to destroy you, but to awaken you. You are being pulled, not apart, but inward. You live at war with parts of yourself, not because you are broken, but because you were taught to break yourself into acceptable pieces. From an early age you were shown which emotions were good, and which ones must be hidden. You learned to smile when you were in pain, to be polite when you were angry, to perform perfection while drowning in confusion. The world didn't ask for your truth, it asked for your compliance, so you learned to split, to divide your soul into fragments that could survive. You tucked your tears into silence, you hid your questions behind obedience. And piece by piece, you disown the most alive parts of yourself just to belong. But what is belonging if it costs your wholeness? The sadness you suppress, the anger you shame, the need you ridicule, they did not vanish. They became ghosts, not ghosts that haunt you from outside, but from within. And this is the true source of your struggle, the conflict between the version of yourself you present, and the version that pleads for permission to exist. You are not fighting life, you are fighting your reflection in a broken mirror, and every time you ignore the ache, every time you numb the longing, every time you call your vulnerability weakness, the war intensifies. Because the parts of you that you reject do not disappear, they wait patiently, fiercely, like children left behind, still hoping you'll come back and say, I see you, you're allowed to exist. To end the struggle, you must call back what you've exiled. The wound, the rage, the fear, they are not defects, they are the voice of the soul trying to lead you home. Integration, not suppression, is the path to peace. When you make room for the very parts you once labeled as wrong, you stop living in fragments. You begin to live as one. The war ends not through victory, but through reunion. You cling to a mask that no longer fits, not because you are dishonest, but because you were once convinced it was the only way to be loved. The mask was necessary once. It protected you, helped you survive, allowed you to navigate a world that demanded something other than your raw, true self. It was crafted from fear, from need, from the ache to be accepted. And it worked for a while. It earned you praise. It kept you safe. But it also cost you something, your authenticity. Now the mask feels tight, suffocating. You wear the smile, say the right words, play the expected role. But somewhere beneath it, you feel hollow. Because the person you've become to be liked is not the person your soul longs to be. And this is the hidden pain, not that you are unseen, but that you are only seen through a false image. The struggle emerges here, between the comfort of familiarity and the risk of truth. You fear that if you take the mask off, they won't recognize you, but the deeper fear is this. What if you no longer recognize yourself? What if, in wearing this mask for so long, you've forgotten who lives beneath it? The persona, the identity you perform, is not inherently wrong. It's a tool, a bridge between your inner world and the outer one. But when it becomes a prison rather than a passage, the soul begins to rebel. Anxiety rises, depression darkens, exhaustion creeps in. These are not signs of failure. They are signs that the soul is knocking, that the false self is collapsing, and the true self is ready to emerge. But the emergence will feel like death, the death of the image, the death of approval, the death of the version of you others learn to love, and yet that death is sacred, because something deeper is trying to be born. Not a better mask, but an unmasked being. Not a performance, but a presence. To take off the mask is not to destroy your life. It is to finally begin it. Yes, it will cost you something. Illusions, expectations, borrowed dreams. But what it gives you is beyond price. Peace within your own skin. A life that feels like yours. A voice that no longer echoes, but speaks from the center. You don't need to become someone else. You only need the courage to return to who you were before you were told to pretend. The mask once saved you, now it's time to save yourself. You mistake the shadow for evil instead of energy, and this is one of the great tragedies of the inner life. You were taught that what is dark must be avoided, what is hidden must be feared, and what is painful must be destroyed. But the truth is far more complex, and far more liberating. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your unlived life. It is everything you pushed away because the world told you it was too much, too wild, too dangerous to be loved. You struggle because you confuse darkness with damnation, when in fact, it is the womb of transformation. The shadow holds your forbidden anger, your unexpressed grief, your buried instincts, your forgotten dreams, and even your untapped creativity. You cast it out not because it is wrong, but because it threatened the image you were told to maintain. And yet, what you exile does not vanish, it waits, it watches, and it weaves itself into your life in unconscious ways. The anger you suppress becomes passive aggression. The desire you deny becomes addiction. The sadness you ignore becomes numbness. The jealousy you shame becomes self-sabotage. These are not failures. They are signals. Your shadow is not trying to ruin you, it is trying to wake you, not with gentle whispers, but with deep disruptive truth. The kind of truth that doesn't flatter but liberates. You've spent so long trying to be good, trying to stay in the light, trying to only feel what's acceptable. But in doing so, you've made yourself smaller than you are. You've confused safety with wholeness. You've mistaken obedience for peace, and the shadow keeps rising, not to destroy that illusion, but to complete you. The shadow is not evil. It is raw, primordial energy. It is the life force that was denied a place at the table. When integrated, it becomes power, intuition, passion, and grounded wisdom. When rejected, it becomes projection, shame, destruction, and fear. The difference lies not in its nature, but in your relationship to it. To face the shadow is not to fall into darkness. It is to step into depth. It is to meet yourself in the places you were taught to avoid, and there, to discover that even your so-called ugliness contains a sacred pulse. The shadow doesn't want to control you. It wants to be heard, honored, and transformed. True growth doesn't happen by chasing the light. It happens when you can sit in the dark without flinching, when you stop asking, "How do I get rid of this part of me?" and start asking, "What is this part trying to teach me?" Then the shadow no longer rules you from the depths. It becomes your ally, your guide, your source of authentic strength. You don't heal by pretending the darkness isn't there. You heal by discovering that the darkness was never your enemy. It was your neglected potential waiting to come home. You seek meaning in a world that offers distraction, and this is why your soul aches in quiet moments. You are surrounded by noise, constant, glittering, seductive noise that keeps you moving, scrolling, consuming, comparing. Everywhere you turn, there is something to numb you, something to fill the silence, something to pacify the unrest that stirs beneath your surface. But no matter how many distractions you indulge in, the emptiness returns, because the soul cannot be fed with fragments. You are not starving for content, you are starving for connection. Not shallow connection to other people's curated lives, but deep connection to your own unlived truth. And yet the world tells you to run from the discomfort, to avoid stillness, to treat pain like a problem to fix rather than a teacher to listen to. It distracts you not only from your suffering, but also from your transformation. You wake up and reach for your phone before you've even greeted your own thoughts. You chase productivity as though your worth depends on constant output. You scroll past your loneliness with reels, likes, and half-felt affirmations. But these are sugar for the soul. They may comfort for a moment, but they cannot nourish, and still something in you resists. That's why the struggle persists. That's why in the quiet you feel the weight return, the ache for something real, something enduring, something sacred. Not pleasure, not escape, not stimulation, meaning, but meaning isn't loud. It doesn't shout above the noise. It whispers from within. It asks you to slow down, to listen, to feel, to follow the threads of your longing instead of silencing them. It requires discomfort because meaning lives on the other side of distraction, and most people never reach it, not because it is far away, but because they never stop running. Your pain is not proof that something is wrong with you. It is a compass. It points inward. It tells you there is something more. The restlessness you feel is sacred. It is the soul knocking against the walls you've built around it, and the world will offer you 1,000 ways to avoid answering that knock. But none of them will quiet the longing. To live with meaning is not to escape life's suffering. It is to find something worth suffering for It is to choose purpose over popularity, depth over dopamine, presence over performance. It is to remember that your soul did not come here to be entertained. It came to be embodied. So turn off the noise, return to your breath, ask the questions you've been avoiding, sit with the ache instead of scrolling past it. Beneath the distractions lies the sacred, and it has been waiting for you. You have forgotten that the struggle is sacred. You see it as a sign that something has gone wrong, that you've failed, that you are off course. You panic when things fall apart, curse your confusion, and shrink beneath the weight of not knowing. But struggle is not proof of your failure. It is the birthplace of your becoming. We live in a culture that worships ease and quick fixes. Everything is designed to be fast, smooth, painless. And so, when your inner world becomes chaotic, when old patterns collapse, when life refuses to cooperate with your plans, you assume it must be a problem to solve. But what if it's not a problem? What if it's a rite of passage? The soul does not grow through perfection. It grows through pressure, rupture, and surrender. Struggle is the fire that burns away illusion. It is the chisel that breaks the hardened mask. It is the silence that forces you to hear what you've long ignored. What hurts is not the transformation itself, but your resistance to it. The mind says, this shouldn't be happening. But the deeper self knows, this is exactly what's needed. You struggle not because you are broken, but because something within you is trying to break free. A deeper truth is pushing to the surface, and the old identity cannot contain it. The pain is not punishment, it is preparation. It is the sacred tension between who you were and who you are becoming. The caterpillar does not dissolve joyfully, it dissolves completely. There is no map in the cocoon, only darkness, uncertainty, and the slow, silent work of recreation. And so it is with you. Struggle strips away everything that is not essential. It confronts you with your fears, your falsehoods, your forgotten wounds, not to crush you, but to call you back to your center. But we forget. We forget that the wound is a doorway, that the breakdown is a breakthrough in disguise. We forget that the night is always darkest just before it becomes holy, and so we run, we numb. We doubt, we ask, why me, when the real question is what is trying to be born in me. You were never promised a life without pain, but you were given the tools to turn pain into wisdom. Every scar you carry has the potential to become a symbol of strength. Every sorrow, if embraced, deepens your compassion. Every trial invites you to become more conscious, more whole, more real. So do not rush to escape your struggle. Let it initiate you. Let it remake you. Let it teach you to trust the wisdom of your own becoming, because the struggle is not in the way, it is the way. It is the sacred fire that forges the soul into something unshakable. This is not the end of your story. This is the holy beginning that begins only after everything false has fallen away. And when you emerge, you will not be the same. You will be real, you will be whole, and you will remember that the struggle was never a curse. It was the sacred path home.